Webcam microphone up close.
Webcam microphone up close.
At the age of 19 in 1962, she was
But I have the files. I read this stuff at the National Archives, and I read these other things. I said to myself, how can that be possible? Pistols, fondle slap of choice, I don't know when that was. It doesn't really matter. Internet, professional wrestlers, and not Jesse Ventura style. It doesn't matter where the information comes from as long as it's real. It's hard to get real information. Because seriously, they don't want you to have two sources together whenever I try to prove out. It's not. If you expect your government to tell you the truth, you're going to be sadly disappointed. Another one of these things.
Dear Lord, what a dirty old man.
Really? You can't be serious. Is this really how you want things to be? Come on. More hooker, eruptions? Eruptions, whatever.
Like Dave Powers kind of...
Really?
Allegedly broadcast live from Pima Region 2, within the borders of the formerly united and currently occupied states of America. We bring you the Ochelli Effect.
I damn sure know I'm an original. We have all these situations. I'd love to know why it takes 50 years, for a 19-year-old girl to eventually get up to gumption to put these things out.
Oh, and that is certainly that. It is Tuesday night on UCY.TV radio. This is the Ochelli Effect. I am your host, Chuck Ochelli, but you already know that if you paid any sort of attention to that sort of insanity-inspiring bumper music of mine. Sorry about that. I do know it does cause heightened anxiety out there, but welcome anyway. Thank you so much for tuning in, especially if you come through to the ucy.tv/TOE page. I appreciate it very, very much. If you're on the TuneIn app or whatever else, it's all good. Thank you for showing up. Anyhow, of course, it's Tuesday night, so that means that we will do our normal Tuesday night with the Liberty Beacon, and that does mean that in the first hour we do get Roger Landry on as soon as I can bring him on in. But besides that, let me see, what else is going on? Well, of course, I am working on a documentary about 9/11 with a couple of interesting individuals. This is going to be a wild sort of group effort, and I think they've kind of brought me in as the background historian regarding the early 20th century. Strange position for me to be in, and they want to use my voice. I have no idea why, ladies and gentlemen, because, I not only have a face for radio, but I have a voice that is, meant for a television that has a broken speaker. So, let's see what else we can do. Like I said, Roger Landry will join me very, very shortly, and we will get on into one of my favorite subjects, which I know we've covered before, but hey, it definitely bears repeating. So, as the little meme that was passed around on social media suggested earlier, and as my basic show announcement suggested earlier, we are going to discuss the dumbing down of America. You got your video open. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. The thing is, I do have Roger Landry on the line, and I'm always happy and privileged to have him on with me. And thankfully, we haven't had too many strange technical glitches yet. But we'll see, because it seems as though every time we touch on a subject that's a little bit of a sore spot, I don't know, things go a little crazy, don't they? Anyway, Roger, how are you this evening?
I'm doing fine, but I didn't know I'd been relegated to the category of a thing.
Ah, you're a thing. Okay.
Who said the thing is?
The thing is. I have all these really bad phrases, and you are
I'm
so
joking
good
with you.
No, don't joke. It's fine, Roger. You know what? It is all the mistakes that I need pointed out to me, because I'm not really, the great smooth announcer that some people are. I'm not,
I'm in no way trying to make you feel uncomfortable. I was cracking a little bit of humor because what we're going to discuss tonight is extremely humorous in such a sad and fatalistic way. It's insane.
See, I'm going to have to disagree with you here, Roger. This doesn't give me any sort of humorous pleasure. I have no sort of excitement regarding the comedy of this. I mean, it is the Keystone Cops of intellectual being that we're seeing played out on the stage here regarding our sort of prowess in the world. When it comes to the American youth and the dumbing down of America, that's absolutely true. But to me, it brings me great sadness, really, Roger. I mean,
that is what I said. I said that it is humorous in a sad and fatalistic fashion. But if you like the article we're going to be working from tonight, there are 4 videos in that article. And if you can watch all 4 of these videos without chuckling at least once, whether it's chuckling out of an innate sense of morbid humor or whatever, but some of the things you see and some of the things that come out of these kids' mouths and some of the things that come out of full-blown adults' mouths, even people my age, are just absolutely mind-bending.
Well, and you don't have to go very far if you're, one of us who is still among the crowd of the walking, sleeping. You just go to your local grocery store. You go to your local whatever. I mean, I know you're a bit set aside from town where you live.
That's an understatement.
Well, yeah, I'm being kind. But the thing is, I mean, how long does it actually take you to go get groceries?
About 40 minutes.
About 40 minutes. So 40 minutes, and I mean, that's like the first store that comes up, too, isn't it?
That's on a highway where you can travel legally 70 miles an hour.
Yeah, there you go. So realistically, for most of us elsewhere, it would probably take about an hour to get there. But since you can do 70 with no problem, and I'm sure, well, anyway, let's not give them any hints. But the thing is, if you live in an area where, it's pretty well developed and you have plenty of different public places that you can go to, all you got to do is strike up a conversation with random human being, which it seems as though I am cursed with the magnetism to encourage this at certain times. It takes you about 5 minutes to determine exactly what the intellectual position of that individual is, exactly how immersed into the matrix they truly are, and it's rather discouraging in all age groups. But this seems to be part of the plan, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it's been a plan for a very long time. I mean, this isn't anything that happened yesterday. It really isn't.
Right.
And again, you can harken right back to things like what William Casey said, head of the CIA in 1981, where he stated, "We'll know our disinformation, drive or whatever you want to call it, project is a success when everything the American people believe is a lie." So when you talk about the dumbing down of America, we're talking about things that have happened over generations, and I would say probably over the last century.
Well, right, and just to kind of back up that point a little more, because everybody points to the Casey statements, but believe it or not, if you just take a look at the internal documents, because I had to do this for a while regarding the JFK assassination, of course, but if you look at the internal documents and the way the government conducted itself during the time when Allen Dulles was the head of the CIA, guess what? It was the same program then. They actually used to have to hire hit squads, in order to create chaos in the media and to taint the information stream, as it were. But, of course, they got kind of better by the time Casey was there, because they just pretty much, bought and paid for their own people to be implanted directly into the information agencies, didn't they?
I got to tell you, the guy who personified a lot of this stuff, and somebody that nobody really talks about anymore, and that was the gentleman who ran the FBI.
Ah, yes, sir.
For many, many, many years.
Yes, sir.
And not only was he one of the best, I actually probably shouldn't even delve into that very deeply, because that's going to take us way off track, and I really want to get through this article so that we can expand the conversation beyond that after it. It's not a very long article.
No, absolutely, but I will speak to the point that you just stopped short of really quickly, and then we'll get right into the article.
Sure.
J. Edgar Hoover is
yeah, there you go. About. Now I can't shut up on it.
and the thing is, his absolute control over the media and entertainment as well. I mean, not only creating
politicians as well.
Politicians.
Mechanism of blackmail.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. That was evident all throughout. And believe it or not, I've spoken to many former FBI agents who worked while Hoover was still alive.
Well, gee, you're a Kennedy dude, and I got to tell you something. Him and Kennedy, oh, forget about it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And although people try to, pin the assassination on him, you can't do that.
No.
Hoover didn't do it. But as far as controlling the information that came out afterwards, as far as controlling the public perception, the lie regarding what they wanted to push, the U.S. government becoming its own historian for the very first time and setting down the Warren Commission report as it was, all that stuff is really self-evident. But it dates way back further than that, and Hoover's attempt to control went into the entertainment field. I mean, there were FBI radio series when radio was basically all the American public had to garner their information from. There were public relations and things like this that were developed. They were really the precursors to what we're looking at now with these CIA-controlled assets throughout the media.
Well, stop and consider that after Hoover died and they went through his quote-unquote personal files, which he should have had no personal files because he was a government servant, they found row after row after row of file cabinets of hand-typed or handwritten documents on congressmen, on senators, on councilmen, on administrative personnel within the executive branch, within the judicial branch. They found so much information that this gentleman had tagged as his personal property to leverage power within the government structure of this country.
And the sad thing is, honestly, Roger, a lot of that stuff has still never seen the light of day. The reality is his private secretary, at the moment he died, disposed of the real deep, dark stuff. So, guess
so
what?
We've been told.
Well, so we've been told. I actually, you're right. I can't prove it, empirically. But the thing is,
because you've got a couple of these right now. These high level administrators within the executive branch who go in front of Congress, and there's like Sebelius, and they're supposed to testify, and oops, all of a sudden, all of their emails the hard drive went bad and they can't recover the emails. And I can honestly tell you, being a hardware engineer, a computer systems hardware engineer, that you never, ever, ever rely on one hard drive to hold any information. You stripe the drives, you have backup drives, you even have, if you're talking about the government, you have backups for your backups. And for each and every one of these drives to all go bad at the same time is insanely stupid for anybody to believe unless they know absolutely nothing about computers and the need for redundancy. Mm-hmm. So when you're told that this information was destroyed, they've been lying to us about that, and they're still lying to us about that for as long as information has been recorded.
And I do feel like trying that particular tactic when the IRS asks for, my records, I really do want to try it because I want to see if that's an acceptable explanation, in the reverse there. But
well, it isn't, because what they would tell you at that point is, so you have no records of your receipts, then you must pay taxes on your full income. So you're just shooting yourself in the foot if you tell them my hard drive went bad with all my receipts on it, because then they'll just tell you, okay, fine, you have no proof, so you will pay taxes on your full income.
That's why I'm like snickering this whole time. I just set that one up for you to knock it down, but I wanted to make sure we got that out there.
All right, would you like me to get through this article so that we can actually throw some banter back and forth? Because, again, some of this I find to be humorous, but I find it to be humorous in a very sad and demoralizing fashion. You can laugh at the stupidest people in the world, but that doesn't mean that you don't absolutely feel sorry that they need to go through life that way.
You know what? You're absolutely correct, sir. And I do want to get through this, and I'm going to drop the link in the chat room in just a sec here. I meant to get it before, but I will get it out there in the chat room. The title of the article is "The Dumbing Down of America, Mission Accomplished?" Okay, so that is what's going to go and get dropped over there in just a second. And anytime you are ready, sir, this is what we're going to discuss tonight, and I'm sure this is going to evoke some sort of conversation between you and I at the very least.
Well, for anybody who grabs a hold of that link from the chat room, you need to understand that the article is rather short, and a lot of the article depends on 4 videos that were placed in there. And I'll talk a little bit more about the videos after I'm done going through the article to set the stage for them. But the videos, and each one of them is a short one, they're like 5 or 6 minutes long, they are as much of the article as the actual characters or the words in the article. So let's go through this, okay?
Right.
There was a point in our history when Americans were considered among the most well-educated and aware societies on this planet. Those days are gone. The American system of education is now a global joke, as it should be. Hold on one second, Chuck. Somebody is trying to send me a message. Okay. I thought it was you. When I'm online and somebody sends me a message, I automatically assume it's the host. But anyway, so let me continue forward. Sure. The American system of education is now a global joke. Believe that, my friends, as it should be. But the most dangerous aspect of this realization is this is being done intentionally. Common Core and its support curriculum is now the purveyor of the American education standard. And it is growing in influence daily, facilitated by grants, bribes, via the federal government to cash-strapped states. This departure from a well-proven system of teaching is written and implemented via the corporatocracy and propagated by entities such as George Soros and Bill Gates, not by the long-established system of education. The goal of this endeavor is to churn out average students. And I'll depart from this just for a second. I published an article I wrote not too long ago on Common Core, and it basically, I believe the title was Common Core, why are we teaching our children to be average? And that is an article I would strongly suggest you look up and read. Common Core, why are we teaching our children to be average? Okay, the goal of this endeavor, again, is to churn out average students capable of satisfying the needs of said mega conglomerations or corporations, but without the ambition, knowledge, or drive to challenge the system. They want you to conform to the system. They don't want you to challenge the system. And I'll go back to a quote David Rockefeller made almost a century ago, where basically, and I'll paraphrase this, basically what he said is, I want good workers, not good thinkers. Google that. The man actually said it, and he set up the very first board of education in this country. He funded it. Okay? People who are unaware of what freedom, liberty, and unbridled ambition truly are will not strive for it. And the end result is a passive and complacent population that knows its place in the hierarchy. I'm sure you and I will get to that point when I'm done here, Chuck.
Oh, yeah.
The days of parents' involvement in the education of their children, such as helping with homework, staying in contact with their educators, etc., are almost gone, as more and more parents must work longer hours and even multiple jobs to maintain a reasonable standard of living and support that family. This is a mistake beyond reckoning, but what, again, falls within the plan's design. We trust and accept that the education our children are receiving is the best and complementary to their future needs. And nothing could be further from the truth. The education presented today is no longer in the best interest of these children. It is in the best interest of the corporatocracy facilitating that education. And this does not bode well for our children or their future, as you're about to see. Now, I'll read another little paragraph that gives you a little bit of a breakdown on the videos. What you are about to experience is funny in a very sad perspective and tragic on so many levels. We can't make this stuff up. And if I were to publish an article describing what you are about to see in these 4 videos yourself, it would be trashed on every forum as a blatant exaggeration or outright fabrication. Yet these children are permitted to graduate because by the standards of our system of education in America today, they are ready. If you, as an entity, can control the minds of children within a generation, you will control the population. Witness the successful dumbing down of America. Now, there are 4 videos here. In these videos, you will find college students being asked who the vice president is. They can't answer it. Being asked what the capital of different states are and the capital of the United States. They can't answer it. Being asked to name one Democratic candidate for the presidency in 2012. They couldn't name one. You will see adults being asked, what does the D.C. stand for in Washington, D.C.? None of them in that entire video could tell you that D.C. stood for the District of Columbia. None of them. And this is the capital of the United States. And one of the kids asked in that video is a first-year history major in college.
Yeah.
You will see 4 videos where people, the average people on the street or students picked at random walking through a college campus are asked questions that I had to know to go from, say, the 4th to the 5th or the 5th to the 6th grade in grade school, or I never would have been advanced. These are college students and adults all the way up to and including my age bracket, and I'm 60 years old. And they are demonstrating not stupidity, but a level of ignorance that is absolutely astounding. But when you spend your day watching absolutely mind-corrupting entertainment, when you spend your day hooked up with porn, when you spend your day or your evenings, or you spend your day hooked up with American Idol, or you spend your day hooked up with the soap operas, or you spend your day, and I could go on and on and on. It leaves very little room when you consider the fact that you need to work, the fact that you need to take care of your family. It leaves you very little time to be up on the political aspects of what it takes for we the people who are the governors, the true governors of this country, to uphold our responsibilities within this country. Now let me say one more thing, Chuck, and then I'll cut it loose. I agree with everybody who tells me we have a corrupt Washington. I believe with 100% with everybody who tells me we have a corrupt judiciary system. I believe all of these things. I truly believe them. But when people say it's not my fault, it's theirs, that's where I draw the line. Because I am a firm believer in any republic. It is up to the most powerful branch of that government to maintain the structure and the viability and the, credibility of that government. And that is we the people. We are the most disconnected and ignorant society on this planet when it comes to our own government. I say that without a moment's hesitation. These videos prove that unequivocally, and I could give you 100 more that would prove it. I'm telling you that one of the biggest reasons for the failures of America today is the fact that we have a society of we the people, the true governors of this republic, who have totally isolated ourselves from the mechanisms of this government, not only physically, not only via our actions, but via the knowledge it requires for us to be able to hold them accountable in the first place. So the dumbing down of America was intentional. It was intentional to push us back from any form of being a part of this government, from any form of participation in this government. And it has worked very, very well. Okay, Chuck.
Now, absolutely, Roger, you're 100% correct about this. The thing is that, people that complain in a lot of cases, not those of us that are sort of aware of how the game is rigged and purple is really the color of things instead of red and blue, but those of us that are still kind of immersed in the idea that the fairy tale is still true. First of all, let's just put that for a moment and not even get into where you should be completely aware of, the game is rigged. But even in the rigged game, they have no clue about what's going on. Not really. Okay.
Really?
Really. And you're also making a solid point in that, the people that pay attention to the American Idol and they understand, what's going on their favorite TV show and they know the actors' names, and I have to confess I don't know any of these actors anymore.
They not only know their names, they know their favorite food, they know what they're prone to say, they know how they can guess how somebody's going to react to a certain situation on the show before it even happens, but yet ask them who the vice president is. That's again in one of those videos.
Yep.
You know how many people couldn't tell anybody that Joe Biden was the vice president? Didn't have a clue, but yet I can tell you that freaky dude inside that reality show, I know everything about him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they know, who's actually been kicked off of the Real Housewives of whatever the hell city they're on.
Doesn't that show you that they're not stupid people? They're just ignorant people.
Well, yeah, this is the point, and it reminds me of like when I was growing up. Things were a little bit different. This process was going on, but it wasn't quite the same.
Right.
It wasn't so disconnected. I mean, we were still making jokes at that point in time. In the movies and things, we identified with and laughed at. Like the Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, where somebody would say, "Do you know who George Washington is?" And one of the kids would say, "The dollar bill dude." And that was funny to us. But it's not funny anymore because it's not funny to me. And here's where I lose my humor on it a little bit, because now it's honestly something that you'll get out of grown people's mouths. They don't know who George Washington was. They don't know, and even if they know that, they have no idea about, anything that happened in the past 200 years. They don't, they might know that, well, he was somebody who had something to do with the beginning of America. That's about it. Meanwhile, this guy was, a rather pivotal figure, and you should know a little bit about the guy who's on your dollar bill, not even to get into the stuff on the back of it.
A rather pivotal figure? Yeah.
I'm being mild.
You have a perfect sense of understatement. You really do.
Well, I'm trying here because, I even look at the Liberty Beacon logo, okay? And I'm telling you now.
Ask anybody who that is on that logo and see how many could even tell you who it is.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I have passed it around before, for various reasons, right? And passed around some of the articles and the memes and things. And it's for those of you who haven't seen it, if you're just listening to me and you've never seen it, it's a silhouette of a guy riding a horse, okay?
Lantern lit up. Yep.
Holding a lantern. All right, and it's obviously like he's got a colonial style hat, what's considered normally, part of the colonial dress and all that. It's a silhouette though. Okay, and if you don't know what a silhouette is, it's just kind of a shadow of an image that should be there. Okay, fine. Now I've simplified it for everybody. All right, and it's obviously a galloping horse. So this is meant to bring you to the idea that this is probably Paul Revere. Now, Try asking.
Now, there's another clue even thrown in there to help you. What's the name of the organization? The Liberty Beacon.
Right.
What's he holding in his hand? He's holding a lantern, which is a beacon. What was his ride for? His ride was for liberty. The British are coming. The British are coming. Okay, there are so many clues there, but I actually ran that test one time.
And what did you get, Roger, I wonder?
34% knew it was Paul Revere within the first 30 seconds of being asked.
There you go.
And these are people who visit a lot of liberty-based or liberty-minded groups on Facebook.
Yeah.
And almost, 66% of them didn't have a clue it was Paul Revere. And it's like, are you kidding me? God, I got so frustrated. Anyway.
I hear you, but ask them what the the stars on the flag represent too. Try that one. That's a fun discussion.
Or better yet, what do the stripes represent?
Oh, forget it.
You'll get almost 100% no on that. But and ask them what an upside down flag means.
Now there's a good question. And I know what it means, but
it means SOS.
Right, it's a distress signal.
It means that whatever facility that is flying an American flag upside down is in distress and needs help in any fashion it can be afforded.
Right. In other words, come to our aid is what it means, essentially. Yes. Right. And this is something that's also not understood. And here's the funny part: I see people that utilize it on the on the social networks, on the social media pages and stuff. They actually use it as part of their avatars or whatever, and they put that and maybe an anonymous mask or something together, and boom, that's their symbol that they think they thought of rather cleverly, right? And they have no idea what it actually means. No clue.
Well, we're sitting in a very, very dangerous position today because when the dumbing down of America is complete, and I would tell you that the progress has reached almost the point of fruition. When the dumbing down of America is complete, and again, one more little side trip, that is the reason, one of the most blatant reasons for the Liberty Beacon Project to start with is to eradicate this programmed ignorance, to give people the knowledge they need to understand, to tell them what they need to do to exercise their power as the most influential and powerful mechanism in any republic. It's the people themselves. But they need to understand that they have that inherent power. They need to understand that any government in the history of this planet, left to its own devices, meaning unencumbered by a population holding their feet to the fire, shall eventually accumulate power and wealth unto themselves. Mm-hmm. This is exactly what's happening in this country today. Due to the failure, our failure. Yes, people, we play a big role in the failure of America as we see it today. Due to our failure as the most important, and we're actually on the top of the totem pole. When it comes to the hierarchy in this country, the federal government is not on top and the people are not on the bottom. Read the damn Constitution. The people are on the top, the states are in the middle, and the federal government is on the bottom. It is the least powerful mechanism in the form of government set up by our founding fathers. And if we fail, which we have miserably, mostly due to this propagandization and the dumbing down of America, if we fail to exercise our task within this republic, then the inevitability is tyranny and the fall of a republic. It has happened over and over and over again throughout global history. We are sitting here watching history repeat itself again. You would think we would be smart enough after how many governments have failed this very mechanism to understand that we cannot allow it to happen again, but yet we are walking dangerously far down this path once more.
Oh, right, and this has been incrementally done. What has occurred here is that it has been entirely turned on its head. It's completely backwards at this point, where people believe that they are the least powerful, in the structure the way it's supposed to be, and that's absolutely incorrect. But what has happened is, over time, okay, there has actually been a lot of mechanisms which have been put into place to take away or to obstruct that power, which is, inalienable, okay, to us. And we have allowed this. This is true. And this has been going on for generations. This is not something that's happened in the past decade or two. This is not something that has happened since Lord Cousin Barry has taken office. No. This is something
over the last century plus.
Right. And the thing is, I start my chronology on this at about 1907 personally, but you can start it from a whole lot of different places. You can even go back to
1871, the Act of 1871, which turned the United States of America into a corporation, and absolutely threw our Constitution and Bill of Rights out the door, but most people don't even understand that ever happened. The United States is no longer a republic unless we throw out the Act of 1871, and any president can do that because every president going into office has to sign that continuation. And if they don't, the Act of 1871 gets thrown out the door, and the corporation fails, and we fall back to being a republic with the organic Constitution. But when you ask most people that, again, the programmed ignorance. How many history books will you ever find that in grade school, in high school, in junior high, in college? None of them. It's not taught to anybody.
No.
Is it a fact? It is.
Well, here's the problem that I have with it, to tell you the truth, Roger, is I have trouble finding, the actual legislation that caused that to happen.
I've got it. I'll dig it up and send it to you, the links, over the next day or two. Okay?
Please do, because I have searched for this a few times, and I found people that have, supposedly reproduced it, but the actual piece of legislation, the thing that would have had to gone through our legislature to cause this to happen, I can't find it. I got to be honest with you, and I hope you've got it, because I've been asked this question before, and to be honest with you, I was sort of like...
All you have to do is Google the Act of 1871, and it will refer to the laws, the numbers, the dates. I think it will even tell you who sponsored the bill and who passed the bill, and of course it was done under the auspice of Abraham Lincoln. Mm-hmm. And I honestly believe that this is the reason that Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. Had nothing to do with the South, had nothing to do with slavery, had nothing to do with any of this. Because Abraham Lincoln only pushed this through because the U.S. debt came due to the global banksters. And the United States couldn't pay it. So this was the only way to keep the United States whole and intact. And satisfy the banksters, was to give them a say in the structure of this country, to turn the United States into an actual corporation. But once the debt had been satisfied and the loans had been administered to the country and the documents had been signed, Abraham Lincoln had already voiced his desire to go in and nullify the Act of 1871 or get it nullified. That's why he was assassinated, because these bankers says, look what we got. We got the United States of America. And they saw the possibility going forward in this country, and they saw the industrial engine starting to build, and they saw what was going to happen with this country, and they said, do you think we're going to let that clown nullify this bill that just handed us on a silver platter the USA? That's why they popped that cap in his head.
Well, right, and here's the thing. People bring up the greenback, and the issuance of that, which was a different type of currency that had been issued previously. And I wonder if you wanted to just kind of address that really quickly, because I know that's what people are thinking about right now.
No, I I don't even want to go there for the very simple reason, and I apologize, but we're so far off track, and we've got less than 20 minutes left, and we have so much to discuss on the dumbing down of America. And I don't want to throw you off track, my friend, but I've got some more things that I really want to throw out about this. But what I want to do, what I want to get from you, if you would please, because I highly value your opinion, is what do you think of the status of the children graduating from high school and college today?
Well,
that's where I really I think we need to take this conversation in the last 20 minutes.
Okay, that's fine. We'll go to that then.
I will do a whole show with you on the Act of 1871, though, because I've written several articles. I promise you, we will do a show on that and the greenback, and we will beat it to death.
Well, I would love to do that. So let's plan to do that coming up, because that is something that is definitely worthy of a whole show.
Yes.
Here's the thing. When it comes down to, the kids that are graduating and everything, they don't have the standard knowledge that we had. They don't have the knowledge that, the generations previous to mine had. They are adept at certain things. They do have the ability to understand, computer code and a lot of this other stuff. They can't spell. They don't have any historical knowledge. They don't really have a sense of how to functionally deal with mathematics in a psychological way, and again, Common Core is a symptom of this, but really this has been going on for longer than that, because they started, changing the math and changing what you could do. I mean, okay, it used to be that when it came to a mathematics solution, if you could arrive at the same answer that was, the correct answer regarding mathematics, it was fine. If you found a different methodology that worked all the way around and was a viable formula to come to the same conclusion that they wanted you to come to, that used to be acceptable. But thinking outside of the box was removed, long before this Common Core stuff came out, and they've made it even worse, even more convoluted now. Okay.
Yeah, you've just stepped on a really, really, really big snake.
Right.
Because I need to tell you something that most people are going to push back on, but I honestly and truly believe. Okay. I do believe there's going to come a time very, very soon where the internet will be taken away from us for, if not an extended period of time, at least a considerable portion of time. I do believe that's going to happen. I do believe we're going to see the electrical grid in this country taken down for a measured period of time, if not an extended period of time. I do believe these things are going to happen. There's just too much proof, too much foreshadowing to say that these things are not going to happen. So now what you have stated, which I wanted to hear you say, and you so perfectly stated, they don't know how to add, but yet they'll whip out that little pocket phone, which has that big old calculator on there with the big old numbers, and they go 37 minus 23, and then they've got the answer. Or they don't know how to spell, but they'll spell a word and autocorrect takes care of it for them. Now, what we have is an entire generation that is about to come into their own. These are the people that are going to be stepping up to manage companies, stepping up to just stepping into the centralized portion of what makes this country function. Okay? Now, let's take their toys away. Let's shut off their computers or shut off the power or take down the satellites for any extended period of time. And what you will find is that the United States has a society that is crippled beyond belief because these kids can't add and these kids can't spell and they don't even know how to divide. And you talk about algebra to most of these kids and they think that's a country in Europe.
If you're lucky.
And trigonometry was somebody that, was from ancient Rome. And I'm dead serious. So if you do not believe that the dependency on all of these toys and mechanisms is not part of the functional dumbing down of a society, then you're wrong. I
When I grew up, I had to be able to divide. I had to be able to add, subtract, multiply. I had to be able to do basic algebra, basic trigonometry. I had to be able to spell. I had to know the definition of words. I had to know the meaning of or, the definition of different, like two, and two. TWO, TOO, and TO.
No.
Okay? These are things I had to know. I was literate and I was functional. If you shut the lights off on these kids today, anywhere from, I'd say, 12 years old to 22 years old today, you cripple them. Not many people look at that aspect of this. They just don't. But it is a very vital aspect of the dumbing down of an entire generation within this country, because they are extremely dependent on those toys to do what you and I took for granted via education when we were kids.
Well, right, and again, you know, the also the dependence on anything they want to know. Okay, let's take a quick for instance here, Roger. And although
I read a book.
Well, yeah, good luck on that. But let's just put things aside. Maybe some people don't want to read books. Okay. But think about this for a second, okay? And you and I are two different generations, that's for certain. Yeah. But the thing is, 20 years apart, exactly. Basically, you're like my parents' generation, all right? And I'm, you know, in my 40s, so,
Don't get snotty nose with me, kid.
I'll try not to. But believe me, I'm already shaking my cane at the kids on my lawn. So,
oh, yeah. Sure.
Anyway, back. Enough of my miseries. Back to what I was saying. When we were growing up, here was the thing. Okay, if we wanted to know how to do something, if we wanted to understand how something worked, whether it was how to light a fire, or how to sharpen a knife, or how to use a knife, or how to, actually build something, etc., we either had to be instructed by someone, or we had to go and research and find our way to an instruction on it. Yes. Right? Okay, so that's all gone, and the convenience of the internet is great because you can just, flip on a YouTube channel or whatever else.
Sharpen a knife. There you go. Here's a video on it.
Yeah, okay. Guarantee it.
And now you shut all the lights off, and you got a dull knife, and you're going, well, gee, what do I do now?
Yeah, see, that's my point. I mean,
it is.
It's bad enough that, and I've said this before, during my generation, people didn't know how to cook during my generation. That was gone because we were definitely like the fast food generation. The fast food industry exploded during my time.
Oh, microwavable dinners.
Microwaves did it too, because all of a sudden you could have, dinner in 2 minutes if you needed it. Right? Oh, yeah. It doesn't matter that it's, poisoned.
I will tell you something else that I have actually done. I have done this, okay? About 2 years ago. I had some next-door neighbors, very, very, very good friends of mine, and they had a teenage son and a teenage daughter. And actually, it was less than 2 years ago, okay? And I talked them into trying an experiment one day. Mm-hmm. I asked them if they would take these multifaceted cell phones away from their children. And they had the type of cell phone that did everything. They could watch movies, they could read books, they could everything on that damn cell phone, okay? Mm-hmm. I asked them to take their cell phones away for 48 hours and to sit down and put down notes as to what they observed. I will tell you that 2 days later, when I went back and talked to Maria, the first thing she told me, these are her exact words, she said, Roger, I have seen heroin addicts that showed less withdrawal symptoms than my children did. Mm. They didn't know what to do with themselves. They spent so much time watching videos and reading and doing this on that. They don't even have proper social skills. Watching brother and sister sitting together across from each other and trying to hold a conversation for the first time, and they couldn't remember how long. She said it was absolutely astounding.
And it is. And, what was just mentioned in the chat room was that, this is why elders were actually a valued part of society. Because, of course, they had already experienced these things. They knew how to light a fire. They knew how to cook. They knew how to, go fishing if they were hungry and had no money. They knew how to find their way to shelter. They knew how to build a shelter. So, of course, they instructed the younger ones. And this was one of the things.
Whoever put that into your chat room a big cyber hug, because that was the next place I was going, and that individual was extremely, extremely right, because what we have today is a society where so many of our elders have Alzheimer's, so many of them have dementia, so many of them have cancer, so many of them have cognitive dysfunction. Or we have been trained to believe, due to the propagandization of society again, that they are old and useless at this point, so they're just not listened to. What we are doing is ignoring one of the biggest treasures this country has, and that is the gathered experiences and the lifetime events acquired by these people. We no longer show the respect to the 70, 75, 80-year-old group that we used. When I was a kid, if you were 70 years old, you were somebody who was wise. You were somebody who was listened to. I used to sit on my grandfather's lap for hours and listen to this guy talk. Mm-hmm. Today, this is all but gone, either through cognitive dysfunction or through the propagandization that old people are now a burden on society. And whoever put that in your chat group hit the nail right on the head. But that's another portion of the dumbing down of America, separating us from one of the best assets we have as a society today, and that is our elders.
Exactly, and of course, the old there used to be an old axiom out there that said that every time an old man dies, a library is burned, and yes. What that actually meant was precisely this: that because that man who had survived, who had all these wonderful experiences, who had the knowledge that could be passed on to the younger generation so that they might take it forward into the next generation and so on and so forth. Yes, this was a useful part of society. This was a useful part of just human culture, no matter what part of the world you were in. Whether it had to do with skinning a buck, or it had to do with understanding the political situation, or knowing about wars, or understanding any of this. And you're right, the disconnect has now occurred because of the cognitive disorders. The disconnect has now occurred because of the marginalization of these individuals, the sort of discarding of older people in general from a societal point of view. And of course, they talked to us about this when I was younger, and would point to, societies like Japan, where, the older generation was venerated instead of discarded like we were doing here. But it has only gotten worse.
It's gotten worse in areas like Japan as well.
And that was my next point.
Japan has been westernized.
Exactly my point is that now even their society, it still remains xenophobic to the for the most part, but the fact is that even their society has now become corrupted by this sort of programming. This is not just an American problem, but boy, America is the most glaring example I see on the world stage.
Well, we have other influences that other nations don't have. And we've talked about this in the past. We are the most GMO'd. That's proven to be sterilizing and killing us. We are the most vaccinated, proven to be sterilizing and dumbing us down. The most geoengineered, proving to be killing us and dumbing us down. And we are the most drugged. If you take every bad influence from drugs, vaccines, GMOs, fluoride, geoengineering, all of them. Take all of the things that we consider to be evils on the health of humanity, and the United States is the most of all of them on the planet. The most GMO, the most vaccinated. Why? Stop and think about that for a second. Why is the United States the most invaded from every single direction against our health and our cognitive abilities on this planet? Everything we know through peer-reviewed science has the ability to destroy cognitive ability. We are being slaughtered by it in this country more than any country on the planet. If there's anybody out there listening to this that doesn't believe that, please get a hold of me, because I'll give you a ton of information to prove. And Chuck will tell you, I do not rant about things I don't know about. So anything that can harm in a very provable fashion our cognitive function or dysfunction in this country, on this planet, we have it by a much larger influence in America than any other nation on the planet. Can anybody tell me why? It's the dumbing down of America. It's not just via the school system. It's not just via the mainstream media. It's via the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, the medication we take, the vaccines we receive. We're being dumbed down in every damn way, shape, and form you can think of.
And the overall why, as far as I'm concerned, is because at one time, not today as we speak in my opinion, but at one time, this nation represented the shining city on the hill. It represented the apex
I love Chuck.
of what a free society could be, okay? And here's the thing. If you could take us down, you would demoralize all of those who were reaching for that particular point. You could take the steam away. You know, the little engines that were climbing up those hills, that had laid their tracks carefully, that were trying to aspire to be like us as a society. Well, gee, if you take us down, if we're starting to look sick and demoralized and screwed up, well, then maybe, just maybe, they were right and we were nothing but a decadent society long, long ago, as the propaganda had been spread throughout the world. And look, we're collapsing of our own sickness. And we actually are collapsing of our own sickness. But here's the fun part. It's not because we were free. See, the one thing that has gone down exponentially at the very same time that these attacks are going on is just that. We're no longer going upward. We're on our downswing, but here's the thing that has been increased all over the place is exactly what you're talking about. The water, the air, the general stream of consciousness, everything has been prevaricated so that you cannot possibly reach those same heights anymore. It's no longer walking uphill. It may have been walking flat for a little while, but now it's going downhill. So what does it look like to the uneducated individual on the other side of the planet? It does look exactly like, of course, they can point to many, many examples. The very same stuff that you're showing. Look at how dumb these people are. Look at how they don't know what's going on in their own country.
I spent a lot of time, I apologize, Chuck, I spent a lot of time overseas, okay? This is what I did for a living when I was working for the military-industrial complex.
Right.
I spent a lot of time overseas. And everything you stated is exactly right. The world does look to the people of the United States to see which way the wind should be blowing. They do not like our government, but they absolutely love the American people, the John Waynes, the cowboys of the world. They absolutely do love us. But I talk to these people because I have contributors for the Liberty Beacon Project in over 30 different countries. And when I talk to them and I ask them what is the mindset of the American people across the planet, inevitably I get over and over again from so many of them, we cannot believe how dumbed down, how quickly the American people are. The American people used to be the brightest, the most productive, the most whatever on this planet, and we just don't see it anymore. And it has happened in several generations, not centuries. Several generations. Since I was born in the middle 50s to today, we have seen, the world has watched, and they have seen and they understand, due to what they've seen, the intentional dumbing down of America.
Right, and note to everyone, of course, that the reality is that they understand what's happening, because we are no longer the leaders in science. We are no longer the leaders in literature. We are no longer the leaders in technology, in healthcare, you go down the list any which way you want. You want to look
productivity, in industrialization, in the space race. None of these. You know what? There's only one thing on this planet we are still number one at, and probably will be for a while. Want to guess what it is?
Incarcerated citizens per capita.
Oh, okay, so there's two. I'm talking about the main thing. Okay. The one thing that the world still recognizes us as number one
at. Consumers.
The most powerful military on the planet.
Oh, I didn't even get there yet. You know?
That's what they see.
Yeah.
That's what they see. And we are, by default, the biggest threat to any nation on this planet, because we don't even control our own government or our military. It is controlled by a corporatocracy. So any nation across the planet who doesn't stand a snowball's chance in hell of standing up against one of, if not the only superpower left on the planet, all the corporatocracy has to do is say, we want this from your country. And if they say no, then we will either take it via the military force or at least military blackmail. So the one thing that we are recognized as number one on this planet is military might. And the bad thing about that is, the very bad thing about that is that it's not the individual soldier. It's not the guy working for the military-industrial complex who makes the radar systems or the missile systems. It's not, because they make up the stick. What everybody listening to this has to understand is the stick does not beat you up. It's the bully holding the stick that beats you up with the stick. So it is the corporatocracy that controls this government, thus the military, that uses this stick to get anything they want whenever they want via the mechanisms of military invasion, military advancement, or at the least military blackmail. So we are still number one at something, Chuck.
Yeah, this is absolutely true, and of course we also have the greatest presence as far as being spread throughout the planet, and we discussed this on the last show. I wanted to put out a little correction there, because I had said that I thought there were only 160 some odd nations where our military presence was recognized and known. You know what? My count now goes up to about 185, but as you stated...
170.
Yeah, I go up to about 185 now, and I said it was over 160. But of course, this count does change, because every once in a while, borders are redrawn.
How many countries are there, Chuck?
There's only, depending on the day again, Roger, because, and depending on who recognizes what, we still only have about 200 and some odd. Some
will say it's 202, others will say it's 196, depending on what you define as a country. If we have a military presence in average, I would say 185 out of, say, 195 countries, we're talking about 10 countries on this planet, roughly, that do not have a U.S. military presence in them. Are you freaking kidding me?
And represented...
nations.
Right, represented as a percentage, we're talking about 93% of the nations on this planet have a military presence from the supposed United States. Okay, this is what we're talking about. 93% of the globe is where our presence is felt. Does that sound about right to you?
I would tell you that we extend our military blackmail across the entire globe. But our military presence, I would say between 90 and 95%, yes. And I apologize, my friend, but I've got to duck and run.
I totally understand, Roger, and I do appreciate all your time. And Barry Prince will probably drop in with me in a little bit. He's getting something to eat. I didn't have a second hour plan here. I was going to just discuss things, and I'll do that until Barry joins me because I don't know when he will be able to. But I do want to find out some things from him. I certainly will.
I was talking to him right before I came on your show.
Ah, okay.
We've got another project going on that I will probably be talking to you about next week, and it is something absolutely, it's phenomenal. It's a solution on a national level that will absolutely put a smile on everybody's face who hears this discussion.
Right, and I definitely want to get into that. And, of course, everybody who's listening, you go to thelibertybeacon, all one word.com. You can find all the articles that we discuss on this show. You can find tons of links, videos, you name it. Of course, there are many, many websites and things out there, but if you start with thelibertybeacon.com, that's a good place to go. And, of course, every article you do ends up on there, Roger, and it's always a pleasure to have you on.
You forgot to mention your favorite website in the Liberty Beacon Project.
Not done. Believe me. I got a few other things to mention, yes. Of course, we have The Falling Darkness, all one word.com, has a slightly edgier kind of attitude than the Liberty Beacon does, but I'm telling you, a good start point is still the Liberty Beacon, all one word.com. Not only that, but there's going to be some stuff by the end of this month on the TLB Town Crier, that's all one word, TLB Town Crier, which is the radio site at this point, but it's going to be a crossover media site, I believe, when we get done constructing it. And there's going to be some major changes by the end of the month that are going to make it a hell of a lot more viable, Roger. So we're on our way with that, and I do say just go start with the Liberty Beacon, all one word.com, and if you're done reading there, you can always go and check out some of the archives at the Town Crier and all that good stuff, where, of course, Roger every week does a rant on exactly these types of issues, and every one of them could stand alone or could be linked together with one another. It's just it's done really, really well in modules so that, you don't have to get yourself totally insane all at once. Because anxiety comes from you a little bit, Roger. You get very passionate, and I love you for it, but I'm telling you, some people's nervous systems might not be able to handle it, so it is broken down into 1 hour segments on there for you.
That's why I only do an hour at a time, because I don't want to give people a stroke.
Let's see, and it's exactly why I only do an hour at a time over there, too, because I go through some mental gymnastics verbally.
Your shows are very good, and for anybody listening, Chuck has a show also on Monday evenings on the Liberty Beacon Radio Network. The Ochelli Effect also is on the Liberty Beacon Radio Network. Please listen to him. Chuck has some very, very good discussions with himself.
That's perfect. Yes. And as long as I'm not arguing too much with myself, Roger, it's okay. So,
all right.
Thank you again, sir. Yeah, absolutely. It's always great to hear from you. And everybody, Roger Landry, find the Liberty Beacon on thelibertybeacon.com, all one word. And also on Facebook, you can find him. Many, many groups out there. Just look for the guy, if you know who Paul Revere is. Look for that little silhouette on the gold stamp there, and you will definitely see it. Plus, you'll see it on the Ochelli Effect page on Facebook and on my own page, and on and on and on and on. It's everywhere. Just Google the Liberty Beacon or search it, however it is you choose to, and check it out. And believe me, there's a whole lot more that Roger has to say that we can't exactly cover in a 1 hour piece on this show or any other. So, thanks again, Roger, and please have a good night.
You too, my friend. Talk to you next week.
All right. Roger Landry. Anyhow, as I wait for Barry Prince to join me, I'll say this. There's quite a few things that are going to come up on my show here on this network, and maybe some others as we go forward. On this coming Saturday, of course, it'll be November 22nd, so you know what I'm going to be discussing that night. Actually, Steve Roberts from Cancel the Cabal will be on there with me, and I will flip the script and allow somebody to interview me so that I can go through some of the stuff that that is really relevant as far as I'm concerned regarding that wonderful day in Dallas in the noon hour on November 22nd, 1963, and the fallout ever after. Of course, this was one of the first early trauma-based programming events. When people still did believe in their elected leader or their supposedly elected leader, and so on and so forth. Of course, like I said earlier, there's also a need to look back to 1907 to the present date regarding the historical significance, the build-up to the 9/11 trauma-based programming that occurred in 2001. But there were a great many events that led up to it and fed into it regarding the strategy, the purposes, and the overall program. There's that word again, program of those who wished to shift the paradigm just a little more into their own direction. And of course, we'll have to cover all that, and I hope I'll be able to cover it regarding the script for that documentary, which should be produced in December this year. And let's see something here. Not sure. Skype might be cooperating, it might not be, but oh, there we are. As I was saying, yeah, it will be relevant, and I'm actually planning on doing a show while that script is being written so that you guys can hear about it. I'm very sure that because of the people that have produced 9/11 movies in the past have gotten just about, 750,000 hits. This group operation that I'll be doing with them, and mainly just historical background, and for some reason, like I said, I cannot fathom why, they do like my voice and my delivery, so they want to use me as a narrator for part of it as well. I'll discuss that openly while it's in production with you guys, and you'll get a kind of a behind-the-scenes thing on that. So look for those two shows, and Thursday is still kind of up in the air, and actually this is one of the things I want to talk about with Barry Prince, and there I go tripping over my tongue.
It's okay. You do it well, Charles.
I do it with a little bit of style once in a while, Barry.
You do. You have a great recovery, buddy, and not too many people can move the tongue around like you can, buddy. So there you go. Actually, I was just talking to my son, Charles, about 2 minutes ago, and he said, for sure, the second hour of your show on Thursday night, he will join you. So this time exactly on Thursday night, my son will join you, and he wants to talk about nuclear power. It's something that's absolutely driving him absolutely bonkers. He's done lots and lots of research on it, got a real interest in it, and just wants to blab to you guys what he sees at his perspective as a young man coming into the world with 2 children and the perspectives of his future. So I'm glad he's going to join us on Thursday night, Charles, and that you can put on your calendar.
Excellent. So Thursday night in the second hour, we'll be talking to, and it's Michael, right?
Yeah, Michael Prince.
Michael Prince. You know what it was? I wound up discussing with somebody else. I said that your son was going to come on a program, and they threw that couple of different names at me, and I remember telling them it was Michael, but then couldn't remember at this very moment that it was Michael Prince. So we'll be talking to him, and you know what? This is going to be great because quite often people talk about how it is we can get the earlier generations involved because, you and I are a little bit older. We're not exactly the young people that we once were, although you seem to be getting younger somehow, sir.
I'm actually 15 days older than Roger. So we were both born in August in 1954. So we both grew up identically at the same time in history. When Roger talks about what he saw growing up, well, I experienced everything that he experienced and seen the changes that he's seen. So it's kind of cool when we get talking about it because we could talk about TV shows that we both watched at 6 and 7 and 8 years old. It's like, yeah, I remember that episode. I've witnessed the changes that Roger's witnessed, and we have real good conversations about how things have changed and how radically they've changed. So, yeah, and I'll tell you some other good news I got today, Charles. I got to share this with you guys. I only had about 3 hours of work today, so I was able to get home here around 11 o'clock. And I was talking to Rick Simpson today, and he's in Chile right now. And he has right now his internet is the equivalent of our dial-up here in Canada, really slow. But I managed to get a conversation in with him. I had to wait quite a bit on responses and stuff, but he's got some meetings going on right now with some of the top level individuals in the Chilean government. Their Minister of Health, their Minister of Agriculture. He's already had a meeting with the Minister of Agriculture. But there's some incredible developments going on in that South American country that are going to really bring attention to the world to exactly what one country will do when they finally get around to the point of abolishing this crap about making that beautiful plant illegal in our world. There I go. I tripped on my tongue. I've been hanging around too much, Charles. Hanging around you too much, brother.
See, and that's the bad thing. I do.
It's contagious, you know. God.
I'm sorry, Barry. I do apologize. You were much more of a well-spoken individual before you started talking to me regularly, right?
Seems to be rubbing off, buddy. I don't know. Are you sending it through the wire or what?
I'm sorry, but
okay.
But of course,
I'll try not to trip again.
Cool. But, and Rick Simpson is a guy that I would like to have on my show and talk to sometime. But do me a favor and just give like a brief kind of synopsis once again of who Rick Simpson is to the people listening to us, because I know who he is, and I don't know all the details about him, but I'm completely fascinated because of the story and because of the relation to hemp, which of course I'm on exactly the same page as you regarding this. It seems quite ridiculous that this is one of those things that has been restricted legally and otherwise, to the public. And wow, what a much better world it would be if it wasn't. Okay. And a quick note about that, by the way. Do you know that I have actually lost academic authors and stuff as guests for this show because of the fact that I support the absolute legalization of not only the hemp, plant by itself, but because I support the legalization of all forms of cannabis. Okay. Literally, there are people that will not reappear on my show now. I found that kind of strange.
Well, yeah, I don't know how to answer that one. I would say to those people that they have not done their research at all as far as the hemp plant. They haven't done the research into the history, how long it's been used in the history of mankind, what the implications are for our society. It basically, Charles, and I say that without any reserve, I state to the public that this plant, if implemented widespread into our society now, would basically heal the planet from the inside out. That's how powerful it is. And of course, it's being held back from us. Anything that's good in our world is held back. They don't want it, man. It represents a threat to the logging, to cotton industry, to the pharmaceutical industry. Like I said, man, if everybody had a jar, Charles, of hemp oil beside their bed, and you were consuming that every day to get the endocannabinoids into your body would just love you. Disorders, there isn't one human disorder now that has been subjected to large quantities of cannabinoids that hasn't responded in a positive manner. Rick Simpson, anybody that doesn't know about Rick, he's around the world considered to be the leader in the medical marijuana movement, or if not, one of the leaders in the world. He's authored 2 books, both are on YouTube. All I say to people is go look at Running from the Cure. That link there will take you to thousands and thousands and thousands of reports and sites that will share information about what's going on in the world as far as the hemp plant goes. See Chile doing what they're doing right now. Ecuador apparently is really having a hard look at what's going on there. We see a tremendous wave developing around the world right now, Charles. We have to demand this plant back into our society. It is such a bonus. There is nothing negative about it. It is a win-win-win, no matter what aspect you look at, bar none.
Right, and I do feel kind of good about the fact that some of the states here are actually beginning to move toward the legalization all around, but some of them are going for the medical solution, some of them are going for, restricted or decriminalization. It's happening incrementally, Barry, but it is happening. And across the planet, as you mentioned, now in Central and South America, there's a greater desire for this. Well, just from an economic standpoint, it's going to do a lot of good for these countries, which are, I know it's hard to believe, but are more hurting than we are here. regarding this. I mean, it's going to change industry if they bring it in. It's going to change, the health of the individuals that are there as well. They won't be producing toxic, toxic products and things. They'll actually be producing something that's healthy for them, the environment, on and on and on. I don't see what the negative is for anybody to embrace this, actually. But,
that's I really urge people when I talk to people about it, just to, not listen to what I'm saying, not listen to what anybody says. Go do the research yourself and start going on the internet and doing some studying into it. The World Health Organization made a statement last year that the discovery of the endocannabinoid system in the human body is the greatest medical discovery of the 20th century. So the problem with it, Charles, is there's still very, very few medical schools in the United States of America that are touching on it yet. There is a few that are starting to touch on it, and they're not touching on it in the way they should. It needs to be exposed that this is one of the most incredible healing plants known to man, bar none. It would virtually take a huge chunk out of the pharmaceutical industry if everybody was to consume it in a raw form, in food, or in an oil form of condensed cannabinoids. I've used it. I've seen it knock cancer right out of two of my friends, Robin Broomfield, Prince Rupert, BC, throat cancer, ingested oil directly down his throat for 2.5 months. There isn't a trace of cancer left in his body. And then I was mentioning here on the weekend that I have an Indian gentleman in our village here called Kitimat, a town called Kitimat, but he's the son of the chief of the Hassla Nation in Kitimat. So he's well known in the native community, and he just knocked liver cancer out of his body using hemp oil and a combination of that plus chaga. He implemented the two actually into his body, and there isn't a trace of cancer in his body now. All we're trying to do is wake people's awareness of the fact that pharmaceuticals are a scourge on our society. Roger's touched on it so many times. It's one of his greatest peeves in the world. It's my greatest peeve in the world now, too, when I really take into context how much money they make and how many people they're killing. What, last year, Charles, $80 billion spent on psychotropics alone? Oh, my God. How many people are out to lunch out there? It's incredible, eh?
Well, yeah.
The dumbing down.
And that's something that we didn't even hardly touch on during our dumbing down discussion of America, right? Is the drugging, the psychotropics, and this stuff again has been incrementally introduced into the society, and we're now at a point where some statistics I'm reading show that 1/3 of the American population is essentially on something, and the deal is that we're not talking about the illicit street drugs here. We're talking about the mainstream pharmaceutical stuff that the AMA is pushing, that that our friends in the white coats are pushing. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, well, that's a real deep rabbit hole to get into, Charles, and we could go down that one. We would never touch the bottom of what's behind it all. But,
right.
It is. It's like so deep and so wide. It's like Roger said in his talk, and I relate to so many things he says. It's just, there's absolutely no sense in anything that's going on in our world today. Everything we see is an attack on our society, on our health, on our mental stability. Everything is under attack, no matter where you look. It doesn't matter where you look. There is nothing positive going on. And we need to address it for sure. I mean, especially with our planet, Charles. I look at what's going on with the oceans and what's going on with our environment and our species die off. I read reports every day. I follow quite a few links on this on a regular basis, and it astounds me. It really does. I mean, we have to live on this planet. I mean, our children have to live on this planet. And the way it's going right now, Charles, we need things like the hemp plant brought back in wide scale in our society. That plant alone would have such a monumental effect on this planet. Imagine a planet we didn't have to cut down one more tree. Stop it all altogether, because it can be implemented and changed strictly by using the hemp plant. We don't need to cut down trees. All can do is stop. All of it.
And the yield from the hemp pulp is a lot quicker in the renewable sense than any of the deforestation that we're participating in still. It seems as though we're in a paperless society, but somehow or other we still need plenty of that forest cut down every single day, don't we? And what is that going to do but screw with the gases and all this other stuff that we need to breathe. I mean, here.
It's great. It's absolutely it's insane. You know, Charles. I mean, I didn't realize this until I started doing a little looking into this myself. But 60% of the ocean of the oxygen we breathe on this planet is produced by plankton in the ocean, and we know the oceans are under attack. The rest is produced by plants. So more and more so in the future, we're going to need our forests. We need the planet to be covered in fields and fields and fields of hemp plant. In South American countries, you can grow hemp plants that are 20 feet, 30 feet tall with stalks on them. They'll grow forever. You can produce stock fiber that is so good and so strong. Makes wood look like a joke, Charles. I'm not kidding you. And this is what people have to wake up to. Implement that into our society, and the planet might have a chance. But right now, we really have to start looking at alternative food sources. I honestly believe that the Pacific Ocean is going to die. I believe that's an inevitability now, what I understand going on with Fukushima. We're going to have to look at alternative food sources, and the properties of the hemp plant can answer a lot of problems for the human race. A lot.
Well, absolutely. And here's a quick contrast, by the way, just real quick here, and I know I'm probably just going to make you laugh, Barry, but looking at the mainstream media just before I came to air, what are they talking about? They were actually going back to the whole, we're going to have a chocolate shortage coming soon. Because of the problems with growing the cocoa plant, you might not be able to get as big a Hershey bar as you used to be able to get, ladies and gentlemen. There might be a massive chocolate shortage. We'll be 20 metric tons short regarding our supply and demand by 2030. This is what they're occupying their airtime with, Barry. We're talking about, the air you breathe, the oceans. If you think I'm kidding, I swear to God, I don't know. Let me look really clear.
I never heard that, but I'm gutting myself. That's pretty funny.
No, but they've done this several times. I looked at it in disbelief because this is the third time I've seen it come up. In the past 6-7 years, I've seen them come up. We're going to have this choco-apocalypse or something like that because we're going to run low on the chocolate that we need. I'm not kidding. CNN, that's who ran it. I just pulled it up. CNN ran this story about an hour before I went to air, and they run this every couple of years. I'm not kidding. They're talking about there may be a chocolate shortage, Barry.
Well, what do you think? CNN anymore anyways, Charles. Did you read the stats? Did you read the stats on CNN? I just did, on their audiences? You'll laugh, buddy. I mean, these are facts. If you look at CNN in 1991, I think their audience was 4.8 million. They're getting an average of 220,000 people watching them now a day.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just had to throw that in because you're talking about CNN.
No problem.
Nobody's talking. Nobody's listening to them. Everybody's going to alternative now, Charles.
Well, yeah, exactly. And
where you're going to find the truth, man.
Well, exactly, and they had the benefit. Of course, at that time in '91, they had the benefit of post-Desert Storm stuff. They had all that kind of thing going on, and they were thought of as a source and everything else. But as the population is growing, their viewership is shrinking.
Oh, in droves, Charles, in droves. So it's a good thing the American public is waking up.
Oh, and, absolutely.
What Roger said there earlier, that I can. Agree with a lot of things. He brought a lot of thoughts to my mind, and I agree with a lot of things he was saying there, Charles, about them attacking the internet because people, like you said, and I know and people are waking up now in droves around this planet, and I can see them attacking our source of information. I can see them pulling off a possible false flag here in the very near future to get the American public back in line, if not a full lockdown, Charles. So I'm kind of watching what's going on with Ferguson right now. There was an FBI statement. This was on mainstream media in the States today. The FBI issued a warning to all major cities in the United States to be prepared for civil unrest. That came across the wire today. I don't know if you saw that or not.
Right.
But, they could be brewing something very big right now. So kind of keep an eye on that one, guys, and don't fall for it when they pull it. That's all I can say.
I don't know about you, but I'm this, this was not some kind of news flash to me, because look, we knew that this was going to be seized upon for this purpose. We knew that this was going to be another one of these divide and conquer kind of strategies, which has worked over the centuries. So therefore, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the thing in Ferguson, the thing that's really disgusting to me, of course, is the conglomerate of the mainstream amping it up, ramping it up. We're gonna have, raise your anxiety level because this is coming, and putting out, this sort of, I try to control my language, Barry, but the bottom line is it's half-assed information that they put out there in order to incite people, in order to ramp up that anxiety, in order to create, this greater tension in the population, because now you have to fear your fellow citizens because they're disenchanted. So be afraid, be very afraid, continuously push the fear, and that's something that drives me up a wall. Yep. Why is it that they're doing this? And you know what? It's not just the mainstream. A lot of people in the alternative media are guilty of the same thing.
Yeah, I was going to get to that, Charles, but I do think they're going to pull something here pretty quick. I'm not going along with any fear mongering put into our hearts by government. I understand how they're using that, how they're using it against us right now. I mean, they're bombarding us with so much information right now. It's really hard for us even to focus on issues. But
right, and
I know they're going to play on it, and there'll be individuals that do play on it, even if it doesn't go the way they expect it to go. So I'm just keeping an eye on it. That's all, Charles.
Yeah, absolutely, you should. And I don't know if you've noticed this because, let's really quickly mention that Barry has The Big Puzzle, which is his show, which is on Shake and Wake Radio. And we'll be having some other radio shows out there soon. I'm not sure you're going to keep the same title, but really soon, by the end of the month, probably you'll be on at least one other network that I know of. But for now, you can find The Big Puzzle on Shake and Wake Radio. And you want to tell everybody what time of day that is? Because I always mix all these things up.
What? You should have it memorized by now, Charles.
I should.
You should. No, it's Sunday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern.
That's what it is, exactly. 6 p.m. Eastern, and I always speak in Eastern time, but 3 p.m. Pacific, that's right. The Big Puzzle with Barry Prince. And I'll tell you something else. Another fascinating guy, I don't know how many friend requests you take on Facebook, but a fascinating guy on Facebook to have as one of your friends if you like to have, significant things in your news feed as well. Okay, just to let you know. But, yeah, you're right, and I'll something else that's weird, and I haven't heard this mentioned anywhere, but separate individuals that I do know across the alternative stream, okay, people that are legitimately trying to get good information out there, during this week alone have suffered all sorts of problems, especially during the month of November, but this week especially, there has been hacking, disruption of communications, problems in the Skype sphere, as it were, all over the place. Have you also witnessed the same thing, or am I just seeing this? Because I know, off the top of my head, I can think of 6 people, and I'm not going to talk about it publicly because I don't want to encourage anybody.
No, you're right, Charles. I've been other networks that I've been around have been hacked. Volume interference, calls getting dropped right in the middle of very, very serious conversations.
Right.
We've had lots of interference, and we've seen it accelerate. We know they're going to attack us, Charles. They want to put a stop to people getting the information because, like I said earlier, people really are starting to pay attention. We see things like Obama getting ready to grant amnesty to how many millions of illegal aliens that have just walked into the United States of America, and he's ready to grant them amnesty. I mean, what is going on, Charles?
Well,
I read
there's
those
that.
reports today, and that's just one little piece of the puzzle, but that just astounds me. That's grounds for impeachment right there, my friend.
Well, right, and of course, they're supposed to be reevaluating their position regarding, negotiation with terrorist organizations and all this stuff. This is the kind of thing that they flip by you to keep you distracted. Of course, on the underpinning of all that, we have the net neutrality thing really being bounced around.
Yeah.
Which Man, oh man, it's hard to dissect that issue, but the truth is, this is one of the things that is going to really put a serious governor on, internet communication, which has been to this date sort of like the Gutenberg press, and coming out, and also like the underground publications of old. Of course, you being a little bit older than myself, you remember the real heyday of what was sort of the really underground and truly alternative media long before there was any of this electronic media. There was a lot of people out there that printed their own pamphlets, that put together their own information, that printed their own books, that printed their own newspapers, independent stuff. Okay? This has almost been lost. Except for the fact that it does exist in the electronic age, but it's not quite the same thing, is it, Barry? Because you can't take it home and keep it with you the way you used to be able to.
Yeah, true. I remember lots of. I remember in Toronto, back when I was growing up, there was a newspaper called the Underground Railway that published, and I remember even back then picking it up, and it was talking about a lot of stuff that we talk about today. But back then I was not interested and not awake in any shape or form. But yeah, you're right, Charles. We've lost that skill in our society because it's been taken over by the electronic age.
And actually, in Toronto in the mid '90s, I'm sorry to cut you off, but just you brought something back to my mind. In Toronto in the mid '90s, there were still these underground paper publications. I know that because I went there as a musician, and this was the kind of stuff that was still being circulated. There were independent printers.
Right.
That still existed at that time, putting out stuff on newsprint, putting out stuff that was, like newsletters and alternative information, in a way, with sort of like, a few stacks of paper stapled together at the upper left corner out there that had little banners. You remember those too, right?
Yeah, I remember those, Charles. I was born and raised in Toronto, so.
There you go, and I
got out of there a long time ago.
But I do remember that stuff, and saw it firsthand, and of course across this country that went on. I mean, they used to have what they called zines. They started calling them because they weren't quite up to the snuff of being a magazine. They were just a zine. You know what I mean? And there was all kinds out there, everything from assassinations to UFOs to what's your government really doing to publishing getting themselves in real trouble when they would actually publish the text that went along with laws and things that were being pushed through locally that people didn't know about and things like that. And those were the guys they really went after, right? They left the guys telling you that Godzilla is real alone, but they started really clamping down on these individuals that were trying to get the truth out regarding your local governments even. And I know that Toronto was one of those places where that happened.
Yeah, I remember a lot of that, Charles. Like I said, back then I wasn't really paying attention the way I am today, but I remember that one publication called the Underground Railway. I used to read that quite a bit. And back then they were talking about Trudeau being a communist, the actual first Prime Minister, Pierre Elliott Trudeau. And they wrote all kinds of articles about him being a communist. And then I started doing a little research on him a couple of years ago, and I found out, you know what? They were bang on. And then you got his son now wanting to be the Prime Minister of Canada. The guy is just a total, complete idiot. Do you hear me, Justin? Man, I hate him, Charles. Anybody out there, a Canadian, that thinks Justin Trudeau is a smart guy? Boy, have I got some information for you. Just get to my Facebook page, and I'll post some stuff that'll change your thinking about Justin Trudeau, and he's going to be our Prime Minister. Boy, are we in trouble, Charles.
Yeah, and you know what? You know what else? Just to, because we're getting down to the last little bit here. I mean, I got about 20 more minutes with you, but I wanted to touch on this really quickly because you were on the show with me when we talked about the attack on the Parliament there, yep. and what was coming up, and of course we discussed what we thought was going to happen coming up in the future. What has been disseminated to the Canadian public thus far that you know of? That kind of goes right on track with what it was we were talking about, because I know there's stuff going on up there.
Well, there's lots of things going on, but as far as the attack on the Parliament, that's kind of just been dropped now from the press. It really isn't discussed anywhere. I watch, the only station that I do watch in Canada, and I find them even to be biased, but I watch Sun News, which in Canada I find it's the only station that I will watch because they do actually expose a lot of hardcore truths. And I haven't seen much about that, Charles. Honestly, I haven't seen any legislation come across, and they would bring that to our attention because they're really on top of what happened there that day, and they've had some reports out on it, but it's kind of gone quiet. So I can't say anything about that, but the one thing that is driving people crazy in Canada right now is the High Prairie gun grab and what the RCMP did that day, and the fact that they still refused to release the report to the public. This happened almost 2 years ago now, where RCMP kicked down approximately 1,700 doors of law-abiding citizens' houses, seized their firearms totally unlawfully, seized their ammunition, destroyed all the ammunition, and people had to wait, some of them 3 to 4 to 5 months to get their firearms back. The RCMP, there was such a stink raised about it, of course. The RCMP promised a report on it, and they promised the report would come out at the end of 2013. Well, it got pushed off, and now it's 2014, and now they're telling us it's going to be 2015 before they release the report. I say BS to that, Charles. Just an example of what's going on inside our police forces, bud.
Well, right, and what was the, and just let's familiarize everybody. I mean, what was the excuse for them doing that exactly?
How it went down, Charles, the town was flooded, okay? It had a major flood. The actual gun grabs didn't happen the first time the RCMP attended houses looking for people that had held up in their houses or people that were stranded. They made an original search of the town, and anybody that was in their houses, they removed them and took them to safe places. They were mandated to get out, blah, blah, blah. The RCMP then returned to all those houses, kicked down doors, approximately 1,700 by our count. This is all documented at this point, and seized firearms that were hidden. Some of them stashed away so well that you'd have to look 15, 20 minutes to find it. They seized all the ammunition in the houses. They destroyed all the ammunition. None of the residents got back their ammunition. And now they're supposed to be releasing this report, and the Sun News is all over them. They're like on them every day. And of course, the other mainstream media outlets in Canada don't even hear a word about it. So that's one story I wanted to bring your listeners to attention to. We're seeing the same thing happen up here as you're seeing in the States, but not in the level that you are down there, guys. I tell you, your police forces are right out of control, Charles.
Yeah, absolutely. And the CBC, of course, is not reporting on this anymore, are they?
Not at all. Or CTV. None of the mainstream media is even touching it. They're not touching the story. And yet it was such a contradiction of our rights and such an insult, man. It was incredible. It should be their main story every day until the RCMP do release the report and we find out who directed these cops to go do what they did. But it will be released eventually. Sun News will not leave them alone. I know that Ezra Levant, one of the reporters there, contacts the RCMP every second or third day asking for a release date on the report. So it won't be left to lie.
Well, there you go. And it is also interesting to note that this has been going on for now 2 years, right?
Almost 2 years now, Charles.
Yeah. And, people talk about the disarming of citizens that went on, during Hurricane Katrina in this country and all this kind of stuff, and the way that the public was handled. But it seems to me as though this is an even bigger sort of story, and it's weird too because I've always read the statistics about this stuff, and the amount of gun violence among the citizenry, seems to be a much larger problem, this side of that border. And yet they went and did this, under the guise of public safety, I guess. I mean, I don't know what their real reasoning was behind it, but that would be the general public face of the reasoning, right?
Well, if that's the reason they give, Charles, then they'll be lambasted because what they did was totally, totally against the law. Absolutely no excuse for what they did. So we're waiting. And it's definitely going to shock some people when the report comes out. But we're seeing the same thing happen here, Charles, and like I said, in a much smaller scale than you're seeing it in the States, but we're starting to really see it creep its evil head into Canada. I mean, I believe that Harper and Obama are in bed together, so that's my opinion of that situation.
Right, and that's, pretty obvious. As far as it's pretty obvious, but here's the fun part is that I'm not exactly sure what level of power Harper actually has. I'm firmly committed to the idea that that Obama doesn't really wield any power anymore. He's simply the corporate spokesperson, and he was packaged that way.
Yeah.
I don't.
Puppet.
Yeah, I don't know if Harper.
You still hate the puppet speaking all the crap all the time, man. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, of course. Because you don't see the ventriloquist who's behind the camera and actually reading the lines into the microphone. But you figure Harper's about the same kind of thing.
I do.
Okay.
He's out to sell out our country. The Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement, I read that. Charles, I don't have time to get into detail on that one today, but Harper's basically selling us out to the Chinese, giving Chinese rights over natural resources in Canada. He's basically selling the country out under the guise of progress, blah, blah, blah. So anybody that hasn't read the Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement, it's on the internet, and you go have a look at it, and you'll find out what Harper's doing to Canada. I hate the man. But we don't have a choice. I mean, what do you got coming up? Justin Trudeau? Or you got Mulcair, the NDP guy? Oh, man, we need a new representative in Canada. Maybe I should run for Prime Minister. Who wants to get behind me? Okay, I'm going to run. Because it's all crap. Every one of them's crap. The whole system has to be revamped.
Boy, I'll tell you what a country it would be if you were Prime Minister, right?
There would be hemp fields everywhere, Charles.
That's the first thing, is that Canada would become the world's leader in hemp distribution and production. I'm very, very sure.
And research.
And research, and then after that, of course, Chaga would come out and be one of the world's new, revolutionary products throughout the planet for certain, because we know how you feel about that, and but you know what? It bears repeating. If you wanted to go into that really quickly again.
No, I do rant on that every day, man. I tell you, I never do get tired talking about it, of course, Charles, because of the results I've seen in my community, the results I've seen in my life. And I got a ton of people now drinking chaga, and they're all wanting to thank me. So to me, it's just been a blessing in my life to have this plant exposed to me and gain the knowledge that I've gained, experience the results in my own life, drink it on a regular basis. If I happen by chance to leave my chaga at home in the morning, I'm back home to pick it up. I mean, boy, after 10 minutes in the morning, I drink my chaga, and it's like your body just completely energizes. Your mind works better. Everything functions. You work hard. I'm 60 years old now, Charles, and I tell you, buddy, I feel like I'm 40. And people around me are saying the same thing, that you seem like you're full of life all the time. So that's one of the contributing factors for sure, guys. So, yeah, like I've said before, if you can find it anywhere in your world, anywhere that you can find birch forest growing, go out and try and get yourself some chaga. If you can't get it, go to the health food store and buy it. Because it is the bomb, Charles.
Right. And this is why I mentioned when you first came on that it seems as though you're getting younger, and I feel like I'm getting older. It has a lot to do with this. So that's one of the reasons why I mentioned it.
It makes me happy every time I talk about it, Charles, because I see people smiling all the time that are drinking it, and it's just like, wow, what a blessing in our community, and a blessing to the world if we can get them all drinking chaga. But it's just like I said, Charles, it's one example. I mean, I'm not any kind of an expert on natural foods and stuff, but I'm learning, boy, I'll tell you. And this has really opened up my eyes to the potential of eating right and experiencing the herbs on the planet that are given to us to heal our body. That's all we need. No pharmaceutical drugs, man. Tell that doctor, take that prescription pad and put it where the sun don't shine. Excuse my language.
No, hey, not a problem.
Because that's what they got to do with it, Charles. Man.
Well, the whole thing is that, and here's what scares them the most, is that the more that we explore the natural remedies and the natural preventative measures that we can actually introduce into our own bodies by using things that are grown in the ground one way or another, what we do is take away their need to even see us. So they don't get to hand us one of those prescriptions, and they don't get to make their bonuses, and they don't get their kickbacks, and we're no longer the sickly for-profit society that we seem to have devolved into, and this is the point of it. So, and I'm sure you agree with everything I just said.
Oh, absolutely, Charles. Absolutely, keep going. I like listening to you talk. No, you're right, absolutely. I mean, look what's going on inside the pharmaceutical industries. I mean, there's a conversation we could have for hours to start putting the stats out in front of people. A lot of people don't really know all the stats, how much money they make. how much they paid out last year in settlements. I mean, it's absolutely mind-boggling. And of course they'll do anything to fight and protect that money. And the implementation of the hemp plant in our society is going to take such a chunk out of the medical profession, it will blow our minds. Period.
Exactly.
Cannabinoids, guys. Cannabinoids.
Exactly, and this is why I support it. It's not a matter of and I'm not even a guy who because this was the response, by the way, from some people who had heard that was my position and decided they didn't want to come on with me anymore. Was that essentially that I was simply advocating drug use. And I said, no, that's not my job. That's what the AMA does. And
that's what your doctor does, man.
Yeah,
you're a psychiatrist.
Well, I mean, they're ostensibly, and here's the air quotes on radio, doctors also. Although, wow, we could get into a whole discussion on psychiatry in general. But again, we are running out of time, so let's.
I know. You're going to get me going in a million different directions here, Charles, because that's when I could talk. I hate that word. But we won't talk about that today. We're talking about something that really made me happy.
Right,
and what makes me happy, Charles, is when I go on the internet, and I'm tied into quite a few medical sites around the world, and I see reports, and I'm not kidding you, buddy, every second or third day, I'll read a report of a child that has basically been given up on by the medical profession, has been put on medical oil, and their health has come back, and I see it all the time. And it brings tears to my eyes, Charles, when I think about the children that are suffering the way they do, and they don't have to. It's just this knowledge has to be spread. And if I ask anybody to do during the case today, just go take a little bit of time and look at it. Go listen to a couple videos by Dr. David Bruce Allen on the system and how it works in our body, and some of the discoveries he's made in his 15 years of research. I was lucky enough to have him on there was about 10 days ago. I had him on a show, and I'm going to have him on again very quickly here, Charles, with another doctor that are going to talk about some of the recent movements forward in medical. And all I can say is we need to grasp it, guys. We really do. We need to force our governments to accept this widespread, and to heck with this legalization and government controlling it. We should all be allowed to have 6 or 10 or 12 plants in our backyard. We should all be allowed to produce our oil, allowed to produce our fiber and our food. Everything that we need to live on can be done in our backyard with the hemp plant. And that's where society needs to go, Charles. If we're going to have a future, man, we're killing this planet. It's cut and dry, man. There's no discussion as far as I'm concerned on that subject at this point in my life. Everything I've read about it, and I understand what's going on this planet, we're killing it. And it's going to come to a stop. We want a future for our children, buddy.
Well, that's the absolute truth, and there are some people that say the greatest threat is from geoengineering. There are some people that say the greatest threat is from genetically modified organisms, the pharmaceuticals, the poisoning, this way, that way, the third way. But the greatest threat actually to this planet, as far as I'm concerned, is the ignorance and the corporations that push it. Because at the bottom line here regarding this entire situation, whether you support the idea of hemp or not, you must understand that what we have done here is been sort of convinced as a whole, not necessarily everybody listening to us right now, but as a whole, our societies have all been convinced that these unnatural means are the way to go regarding our power, regarding our transportation, regarding our food, regarding our skies, regarding our water, all of these things which are unnatural, which are counterproductive to the human organism and every other organism on the planet, have been propagated so far and wide that there is literally nothing left on this planet that has not been tainted in some way or other. But here's the good news. It can all be healed. It can all be reversed. If we change just a few things, get back to some of those natural solutions, if we get back to some of the great plants, not just the hemp and not just the chaga, but there's a whole lot of plants out there, stuff that I guarantee you, Barry, you and I have never even heard of, that are out there. There are things that are grown locally just right within a short walk from wherever it is you are standing while you listen to this show that could do a great many things for you. It's just a matter of educating ourselves regarding this and learning what the effects are. In other words, we have to kind of go back to the old days when there wasn't a factory producing our medicines, when we had to find our medicines in our own communities, when we had to create them for ourselves. Yes, I do support that idea as well. So herbal medicine, herbal health, herbal dietary supplementation, and of course it's always best to try and eat the most natural food you can get your hands on as well. But regardless of what the damage that has been done to you and to every other animal, plant, and, part of the biosphere that is around you, it can all be repaired. Nature can get ill, but it can also repair itself if we give it a chance. And so can we all, in fact. So we can increase our own, psychological abilities, our own mental status, our own intellectual prowess. We can increase all that. We can make it much more clear. We can make a much more peaceful and, basically environmentally conducive world for all creatures if we choose to change these things. That's the great power about being a human being, is that we can actually adjust our environment if we choose. And so far, the choices that have been made by these larger corporations and interests that are not really out for our best interests as human beings, those choices have all been counterproductive so far. But we can change this. This can be done. And that is kind of like my closing little salvo on this whole thing. So this is why I do support the use of anything which is natural to, to its proper ends and to create a better place for us and for those that we're going to leave this world to. Because after all, it is a short ride for those of us that are breathing and speaking right now. And there's going to be many more generations if we don't burn the whole place to a cinder. So, like I said, last couple of minutes, Barry, if there's anything you want to throw in, I got about 3 minutes left, I think, or 2.5. So everybody definitely go and find The Big Puzzle with Barry Prince, please, on Shake and Wake Radio. And I want to thank everybody for listening tonight. But Barry, go ahead, your 2 cents.
Okay, buddy. My closing thoughts, Charles. This is something that we have to take as a responsibility at this point in our lives. Our legacy that we're leaving for our children is absolutely despicable. And we've all been duped, we've all been brainwashed, we've all been controlled to a point in our life. But now that we are awake, we see that our planet is dying. We see all these attacks in our society. It is our responsibility to address these. We can't turn our back on this. The next generation, there isn't going to be time, Charles. And those would be my closing thoughts. This is something we have to look in the mirror, and someday you're going to have to look at your children if you don't become active, if you don't help make changes. You're going to have to look your children in the eye and say, yeah, I heard something about it, but I didn't do anything. Well, thanks, Dad. My one last comment, Charles, the National Liberty Alliance organization has formed common court juries in every common law grand juries in every state of the union, have put 6 months of work into implementing grand state or common law juries in every state of the union. All judges are being served with letters. This is what Roger was talking about. I'm not going to let all the hat out. All of it, and this, I don't have enough time to tell you what's going on with it, but this is very, very exciting. It's an actual answer. I urge everybody listening to go to the nationallibertyalliance.org and look at the video released by John Darash, what they're doing against the courts in the United States of America right now. Charles, you'll find it exciting. And I'll leave it with that, okay, buddy? And we'll bring updates on that. I put John and Roger together today, and Roger was bouncing off the walls. So exciting things happening there, guys, and we'll bring you up to date on it right away. But you can go have a look at the nationallibertyalliance.org and see what John's up to. It'll blow your mind. Yeah,
please do, and I'm going to do that myself because I'm only vaguely aware of it right now. I do appreciate your time, and this is absolutely correct. This is one of those solutions that needs to be had because, after all, the court systems are one of the mechanisms that we do still have at least our fingers in. We don't necessarily have control over it. It is corrupt. It is screwed up, but it is a possibility.
And they're going to get challenged.
You got it. So, and this is one of the things that we must do, which is challenge the authority, challenge the poisoning system, challenge the oligarchy, challenge the overall global conspiracy, because the big puzzle, like Barry's show, is comprised of all these pieces, and guess what? You're probably standing on one of them as we speak. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight, and I do appreciate it. The Ochelli effect is just about done. I know my bumper's going to kick in a moment. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. If you're catching this further on down the stream, I do appreciate that as well. You can also find me on the SoundCloud. You can find me on the Liberty Beacon Town Crier, which is tlbtowncrier.com on Monday nights. Barry Prince, I've already mentioned, is on Shake and Wake Radio on Sundays at 6 p.m. The Big Puzzle, of course. See, I'm getting it right every time now, Barry.
You got her, buddy.
It only takes me about 15 tries, but I'll get there.
Thanks, Charles.
Not a problem. And on Thursday, we're going to talk to, I guess, are you going to come with Michael, too?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to be in the room with him. I'm going to let him do the talking because he's really got some things to say about it.
Excellent. Barry Prince and Michael Prince on Thursday. Everybody have a good night. And I'll see you in a minute, Kim.
At the age of 19 in 1962, she was
but I have the files. You know, I read this stuff at the National Archives, and I read these other things. I said to myself, how can that be possible? The brain, you know, pistols and fondle slab of choice. I don't know when that was. It doesn't really matter. Internet, professional wrestlers, and not Jesse Ventura style. It doesn't matter where the information comes from as long as it's real. It doesn't. It's hard to get real information because seriously, they don't want